Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the MXGP Podcast Show. Except this one is going to be called Storytime with Adam because my co-host went to Lommel, the Grand Prix of Flanders, and has come back with a flurry of insight, bedtime stories, tall tales, and so much more. So I will shortly be taking a back seat to the joy of many listening as we listen to all that Adam has to offer. But before we get there, of course, we have to thank Polosport and Prox Racing Parts for their support of this podcast. They help us run. They help us keep this going, keep MXGP in the limelight somewhat. Of course, media coverage of MXGP is a little few and far between nowadays. So we feel happy that we can do this podcast and shine a light on all of the great things that go on in Grand Prix. And the Grand Prix of Flanders was a perfect example of that. Lommel is just brilliant. Arguably the best Grand Prix of the year, but the best motocross race of the year, you could say. But we'll debate that here right now with Paddock Pass podcast man and author of Motorcycle Grand Prix Insider Stories from World Championship Racing. It's Adam Wheeler. How's it going?
You managed a mouthful, Lewis. Congratulations.
I think that's the first time I've ever done it off the cuff without having it near me or anything.
You were missed last weekend.
I was emotional, to be honest.
I had, quite a few questions about you, and it was a bit of a shame you weren't there because it was a bit of a star-studded event. It just seemed to be many former riders and Lommel legends, and then just quite a hefty industry attendance as well, as tends to be at this Grand Prix. A bit of a haphazard race. It was quite rainy and thundery on Saturday, and then it cleaned up substantially on Sunday and produced that kind of Lommel dust, which is that sort of fine hazy sand that just blows across the surface. But I think I might have nailed my pre-race predictions, right?
You'd have to remind me of what those are. But I presume you picked Coenen.
Yeah, and Kai de Wolf, who I think, he actually topped every single session. Free practice, time practice, qualification heat, warm up, and both motos.
Well, I can. I missed it. You say I was missed, but I missed it. And I'm going to talk something into existence now. Next year, I am pretty much secured that I will be missing more American races, and I will do at least one Grand Prix a month.
What?
Missing Lommel upset me that much that I've really actioned a lot this week. So catch Lewis in the pits a lot more next year, to the dismay of many who will now pull down the shutters on their awnings in an aggressive manner as they hear that. And actually that takes us very nicely into this message I got. Last week we started with a very nice message about you, and another one now. This one came from deep within inside the paddock. Adam should have some very good insights after the weekend. Looking forward to the podcast. He is such a good guy, easy to talk to, and well-liked by everyone. Now, congrats to you. I took that as a very subtle dig at myself. Easy to talk to and well-liked by everyone. That feels like, I don't know, a pie in my face, you could argue.
It sounds like one of my good friends' Twitter accounts. So, don't read too much into it. And I think you just like to read these things to make my face go even more crimson on these videos.
I did tell the person, I said I've just saved that for the intro to the podcast. But are you going to live up to the hype? Do you have good insights?
Goodness.
That's aggressive. Suddenly I feel like I just pinned you against the wall and asked you if you were going to shape up.
It depends on the questions and the points that we have in this podcast, because we do like to be a little random about the things we talk about. But yeah, I mean, going to the paddock, of course, the thing is, working in MotoGP where events last for 4 days and you go to MXGP and it's pretty much 2.5, it suddenly feels extremely rushed. And there's not, I mean, we were talking on the podcast the other week, right, about Grand Prix, or I was, about Grand Prix being drawn out and it should be more of a condensed affair. Well, I mean, just based on my personal experience in Belgium last weekend, I would like more, like another day, please, just to be able to sort of talk to people and find out really what's going on. And in this summer of vast discontent, it seems, it's kind of crucial to sort of filter the truth from a lot of the grumbling. And as we were walking out of the circuit on Sunday night, must have been around 9 p.m., it just started to rain again, and my 16-year-old, sort of said, "Oh, there's where Jeremy Sewer's camper was parked," and of course, half the paddock's empty. And I was telling him a little bit about Jeremy's dissatisfaction with how the Ducati was working in the sand. He just sort of wryly observed that there's a lot of people who are angry with their teams at the moment, it seems. And I just thought, for a 16-year-old who's not super connected with MXGP, it was quite an astute observation. But yeah, just trying to get to the bottom of some stuff, it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, I mean, without exposing too many people here, obviously, we talk to a lot of people. I'm looking at the championship standings. There's 2 riders who I'm confident are very happy with their situations and would like to stay there and continue as they are.
From the top 10?
Yeah. Well, if you want to go below that, I can 11th place kind of gives me some vibes, but wow. Yeah.
Well, there's always the grass is greener on the other side factor in racing, isn't there? You take what kind of percentage of riders are actually happy with their lot, as well as their contracts and everything else. So it can be, a bit of a weird situation. I mean, somebody like Kai de Wolf has pretty much been in the KTM structure since he was in his mid-teens. And I imagine his contract is probably similar to like Jorge Prado's, where he's been tied up for a number of years. If he steps up to the MXGP class, he probably needs to be paid what a potential MXGP Grand Prix winner could earn, instead of like a very promising MX2 rider. Whether he can or can't because of the parameters of that long-term contract is another matter. And that's what we saw with Prado. He felt he needed to be paid more as a World Championship contender in the Premier class. In the end, that was corrected when he flipped over to Gas and re-upped. But, there must be other riders in similar situations.
Do you want to tackle our big rumour or report of the week now, or should we leave it until a little later on?
I think we have to give some credit over who performed well. I mean, Kai comes immediately to mind because, as we said, he was the MX2 master at Lommel, won the Grand Prix for the second year in a row. And watching him, Lewis, through the numerous sections, because, as I mentioned, my 16-year-old was taking some photographs. I posted a story on my Substack blog page, if people want to go and have a look at those pics, because he does a pretty good job. Just watching de Wolf was an education. I mean, it really was like a young Jeffrey Hurlings and the way that he tackled the sand. Minimum energy, maximum efficiency. It was educational, I think I would say. It just looked like he was playing around. Whereas, to draw a contrast, and even Calvin Vlaanderen, who finished third on the MXGP podium, pointed this out. Someone like Sascha Coenen just looked like he was absorbing and smashing every single bump there was on the track. It's really curious to see up close how riders manage the sand.
This is a good debate off the back of de Wolf. I'm seeing a lot of comments online saying that de Wolf has surpassed peak Jeffrey as far as sand skills, and he's evolved Jeffrey's sand skill set. I argue that that's the optics of the MX2 class, because a lot of people also reference Jeffrey in MX2 as when he was at his best in the sand, his most dominant. Of course, MX2 is a weaker field. A lot of riders have had less time to develop their sand skill set. So I think that's more a reflection on racing in MX2 versus MXGP than directly Jeffrey versus Kai.
Also, I mean, Hurlings was undefeated at places like Valkenswaard, right? I mean, it was like 7 years in a row or something that he won. I don't think Kai's got a similar sequence of results or that kind of superiority. I mean, Jeffrey just beat everybody. It didn't matter who was flavour of the month or the best of that particular season. When he got to the sand, he was phenomenal. And, lapping up to what, third, fourth position in Leerop. That's something we very rarely see at World Championship racing. Kai, I think, managed it up to 8th in MX2. The potential is undoubtedly there, and they come from the same stock, but I wouldn't put Kai quite on Jeffrey's level yet.
What a Grand Prix, though. Honestly, watching it on MXGP TV, it reminded me of watching a Motocross of Nations. You could hear the crowd everywhere. It looked packed, more packed than a typical Lommel, I would say, which is always strong anyway. 10 out of 10, honestly. The sand is just a brilliant battleground. It makes It makes the racing quite unpredictable, keeps you on the edge of your seat because you're never quite sure whose fitness will fluctuate, who will make a mistake, etc., etc. In contrast to Lockett, Lommel was a motocross fan's dream as far as a viewing experience goes.
That's why it's so cool that MXGP works out to put those events back to back. It really is like two very extreme flavors of motocross within 7 days. But yeah, there were quite a few comments about the crowds on Saturday. It looked packed already, even though it was lashing with rain at various points. I mean, the climate was weird. It was very heavy showers, but only for about 10 minutes. And then it would blow over and you would get sunshine again. So it was kind of frustratingly inconsistent, but there was a lot of people there. Getting around the paddock was difficult. I'm not too sure whether that's to do with the pricing or the time of year, but if I base my experiences on MotoGP, it just seems that fans are really responding to live sporting events again. Even my sort of football team have had like an increase in fan attendances through sort of the last season, just ahead of the new one about to start. So I don't know. It just feels like wherever you go, potentially there are people sort of paying to watch sport again, and that was a good thing, because I was surprised by how many people actually went into Lommel on Saturday, and of course you had the same thing on Sunday. We know notoriously, and this has been pointed out by the riders themselves, that sort of the Benelux fans don't tend to be the most vocal or the most passionate on the calendar. I saw quite a bit of support for the Coenen brothers, more for Lucas than for Sasha, and there wasn't a great deal of hollering for the Dutchies, but it was still like an atmosphere, and it was still busy all the same.
Do we want to discuss quickly the reasons why the Motocross of Nations hasn't gone back to Lommel since 2012? Because, truth be told, after this weekend's Grand Prix, I want to start petitioning for that to happen. Because if that's what a GP looks like, imagine a Motocross of Nations again. Yes,
but I think you nailed it in your tweet. I think Team USA would be
a flight risk,
highly demotivated. Yeah, to want to tackle that Grand Prix. That event. At Lommel. I mean, even though it gets to the point where I think you have to applaud the fact that they would want to come and do it anyway, which is really going against the spirit of things. And you need sort of, the record holders for multiple wins in the competition. Otherwise, really, it's just like another redressed Grand Prix.
I wonder, though, also, I was pondering this a little more. We know that Lommel has had a lot of issues with the local government. It's kind of on the verge of being shut down quite repeatedly for whatever reason, but always managed to squeeze through the cracks. I wonder if there's an element of the next possible MXON slot is 2029, let's say. We can't commit to Lommel this far out because we don't honestly know if the track's going to be there. I wonder if that plays a role.
Yeah, but somebody I wish I can remember who it was telling me they actually had permission to expand the site.
Oh,
there was an arrangement with the local businesses and something to do with truck parking that Lommel could actually get even bigger, which I thought, okay, that sounds like positive news. And if you just look at the title of the Grand Prix, I mean, it's an indication of where the money or the backing is coming from. I mean, this weekend it was the Grand Prix of Flanders, but in the past it's been the Belgian GP and the Limburg GP. So
one year it was just simply the Grand Prix of Lommel.
Oh yeah. Well, that was in the was it the
COVID triple
the pandemic?
Yeah, where we were scrambling for any name possible.
Yeah, well, I was kind of looking into that, and Tim Geiger is sort of tied with Cairoli and Jeffrey Hurlings on 3 wins apiece at Lommel, and 2 of those wins came within 1 week of the COVID championship. And I was kind of thinking, right, does that diminish having 3 wins, or does it actually kind of bolster it? Because to win at Lommel twice in the same week is that's some good going, for how physical and taxing it is.
Not to get into the nitty gritty of attending the event, but I'm curious, how can Lommel expand? Because we had an email, and you lived it, that the parking had been demolished by a new building. So to me, that sounds like Lommel is being closed in on, not having the ability to expand.
Parking B, which is where the majority of guests go, was located, I think, 2 kilometers away. So one and a bit miles. There was actually a shuttle service ferrying people to and from. But yeah, on the far side of the track, so behind the main banking where all the spectators sit, there was just some talk that it could potentially expand in that area. So I don't know. Maybe it's just falsehoods. But if Lommel does become more established, and as you said, Lewis, having a sand race is really important, and it's good that we go to Arnhem. I mean, Romain Febvre, who won the first moto, and he was screaming when he came across the finish line. I think he really, enjoyed that one. He kept the points gap to Lucas Coenen as tight as it could possibly be. 1-2-2-1, and only lost 1 point because he finished behind the Belgian in the qualification heat. He still has to do it pretty much all over again when the Dutch GP happens at Arnhem. But find some more sand tracks and chuck them in the championship.
I was a bit relieved, to be honest, that Febvre won the first moto and also he was amazing in the qualifying race, just had a bad start. I was relieved because I've beaten the drum on this podcast and others repeatedly that everyone who's presuming Febvre is French and therefore going to finish 5th at Lommel is uneducated, and Febvre's a great sand rider, and if Coenen does go 1-1, Febvre will be right there in 2-2. So I feel like vindicated a little bit, and I'm almost surprised that Febvre took so much joy in the win, because to me it should have been as expected as a win at Lockett or Ernée.
I think because he'd been hounded by Coenen all the way through the first moto once sort of Lucas moved up to his roost and then managed to pass him back straight away, and then he kind of like broke him a little bit. Coenen made a mistake which cost him 2 to 3 seconds. But yeah, I think it was a powerful statement. But you're right. I mean, Febvre is a great sand rider. He's won twice at Lommel, 21 and in 23. So if he would have done it again last weekend, then he would have kept that 2-year sequence. And Jonathan McCready from GateDrop.com, one of the very few websites who are actually digging up news and making content about the championship on a regular basis, he sort of said to him, "Do you think that first moto is one of your best ones yet?" And Febvre kind of said, "No, not really." He had a performance in Lommel a couple of years ago where he, I think it was 23 actually, where he managed to, I think he crashed on the first lap, or he had a bad start, but came all the way back up to P2 behind Jorge Prado and took the overall win. So, Febvre, we saw him with some weaknesses in the past, particularly in regards to his starts. But I think he was feisty, and it was just a shame he didn't really have much left to attack Lucas with in the second moto.
I thought it was curious that on the podium when he was handed the red plate, he was screaming. And then Lucas revealed after the fact that Febvre screamed, "Still on a Kawasaki, still on a Kawasaki," which again, I'm a little bit like, where's that coming from? Like, I don't know. Like, did he really doubt his chances at Lommel that much? I don't know. Like, I think that those words right next to Coenen on the podium when Coenen's celebrating a landmark victory, I think that might be the first time that it's gotten a little tense between the two. Maybe there's cracks showing as far as off-track rivalry, because Coenen did seem a little bit despondent to the remarks.
Maybe Febvre's also just picked up a little bit of this anti-Kawasaki sentiment that seems to be around.
Oh, God, maybe he listens to the podcast as well.
No, I doubt it. But we've been talking about it and how it's been a very sort of dry time for the manufacturer of late, and he's the only one that's really flying the green flag.
This is a wild conversation, and we're not even going to have the information. But I'm just thinking, before Febvre got on a Kawasaki, who would have been the last red plate that they had? Paulin did have it. I want to say Paulin had it on KRT for 1 week, because didn't he win Qatar the first round one year and therefore had it at the second round? But that was it.
Did he win Qatar?
I don't know. For some reason, I have a image in my head of Paulin on a Kawasaki at Sriracha with a red plate.
You know what happened? I think with regards to Qatar, that was that weird super final format, wasn't it? Where
yes, it would have been.
Dessau won the overall but didn't win the super final or something weird like that. Yeah, you could be right. I mean, it's quite striking seeing the red with the green. That's it's something you don't sort of forget in a hurry.
It's very Christmassy. And actually, this is two things we need to do. And I think we need David on this podcast for this, or Dan, sorry. One, I've been saying it for the longest time. I still want to dive into the whole SMX Riders and Manufacturers Cup. It was the biggest mouthful of a name ever. And two, I think we need to revisit the super finals and just, like it wasn't exactly, it was a new format, but it wasn't exactly given its time to evolve and flourish. It was kind of killed instantly. It was 1 year. Was it 2 years or 1 year? I want to say 1 year we did it.
It was 1 year in Qatar, and the foundation of the theory was good because it was like reduced competitor numbers. And I actually applauded it at the time because Ustream, as they were then, were trying to shake things up and do something differently. It was canned because I can mainly because it was change and people don't like that, but then also because everyone flagged the safety concerns of having 450s magically jumping over 250s and having a scenario where you had mixed match machinery, even though it's been part of the motocross of nations for God knows how long. It just seems to be accepted for one day there. But yeah, that's good. It's a good point, Lewis, because I thought the super final was a brave concept, and it could be something that should be revisited because, like, as we've said, maybe MXGP does need to have a little bit of a tweak.
Yeah, we even had LCQs. I remember watching the LCQs quite vividly because it was such a bizarre experience with a motocross race. Speaking of Kawasaki negativity, how about some Kawasaki positivity? With Romain Febvre's podium, his 14th of the season, Kawasaki have now surpassed their best podium total in a season with the KX450.
Oh, wow.
Essentially,
And
I
that's 13
worded
in a row.
that terribly. Because he only missed it around 2, didn't he?
Yeah. There's 13 in a row for Febvre. That might be also a personal record.
From memory, I think that ties what he did in 2015.
Right.
But let's be honest.
That's a small achievement.
He'll be on the podium in Sweden, so he'll get to 14 as well. But yeah, previously, Kawasaki's best podium total in a single MXGP/MX1 season was 2023 with 13 and 2012 with 12, which would have been Poulin and Frossard?
Maybe Porcel?
Yeah, Porcel. Yes, Porcel definitely would have contributed a couple. So maybe just Poulin and Porcel then. Hold on, I'm going to look at that because I'm suddenly curious. 2012.
But
yes,
I mean,
it was.
Febvre,
Yeah,
Poulin and Porcel, yeah.
Except it was the other way around. It was 8 for Porcel and only 4 for Poulin. I would have said it was weighed in Poulin's favour, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, all props to Lucas Coenen as well for taking the overall win. That second moto was superlative, and I asked him afterwards if he had buried some of the demons from last year, and he didn't really answer that, but he did. He acknowledged that it wasn't his best GP performance of the year. He actually cited Finland for that one, but yeah, curious because I think. I'm trying to think of sort of sandy-ish Grand Prix. The first round in Cordoba was on like a very fine soil in Argentina, wasn't it? And then you've also had Finland, and the Kumiring, as it's supposed to be pronounced, was a lot softer stuff. And also Latvia, I guess you can classify as sandy. And then, of course, we got Arnhem coming up too. So, yeah, about 4 or 5 sandy races. And, Coenen said his performance in Belgium wasn't as good as it was in Kumiring.
Who do you compare Coenen to? Just seeing him, watching the way not so much on the bike, but more in his demeanor in press conferences around the pits. Is he a little bit of a young Jeffrey? I don't know. I feel like there's an edge of not cockiness. I don't know what a kinder word is, but there's an edge of that there, isn't there?
Yeah, it's supreme confidence, and he's only a young kid, 18 years old. I'd say he's a little bit more accessible than Jeffrey was. I mean, Jeffrey was kind of shy and, he had flashpoints. I mean, people asked him provocative questions, and he would sort of not give the most diplomatic answers, which we also kind of love him for. So I think Coenen's a little bit like that, but maybe just a little bit more media savvy. But that's also probably a generational thing, and just being aware of the fact that because of social media, that you have that many more eyeballs on you, and everything that you say or do is going to be scrutinized. I don't think Hurling's really had that when he was, around the beginning of the last decade in 2010, 11, 12. When he was 15, 16, 17 winning titles. I don't think that was quite as acute then, because everything happened within this goldfish bowl of MXGP events in the paddock. So but yeah, it's hard to say. The way that he rides the bike and the way he kind of floats around the paddock a little bit kind of happy-go-lucky, almost like Tony Cairoli in a way. I think, there are parallels there too. It's a frightening prospect. I mean, his stats are phenomenal now for his first GP season in the Premier class. So it's, where can he go?
Yeah, maybe a bit of a young Ken Roxon there with his flamboyant side.
Yeah, and Ken was even more flamboyant.
Oh, okay.
And also, had great English. He was kind of really one of the first of what I've probably said this on this podcast before, but like the video generation where, if you were asking him a question, he was giving you a soundbite and there was no real depth or, insight or introspection. There was more just like, yeah, everything's great. Yeah, we'll do it. People say that you can't pass on this track, but you can always find a place to pass. And that would be kind of like all you get. And maybe Coenen is a little bit like that. Although I did sort of sit down with him in Tuchenthal the last time I went to a race and had like a half an hour interview with him, and it was good. I mean, he talks well.
I didn't do this off the top, so if you don't follow MXGP closely, the championship deficit from Coenen to Febvre is now 9 points, because although they tied on points on Sunday with 2-1 and 1-2 scores, Coenen did win the qualifying race, so edged 1 point closer. There's 5 rounds remaining, so he needs to do a little bit more than that to steal the championship, but it certainly seems to be going down to the wire. And yeah, it's very exciting for all. It's not 2021-esque, it's just not, but it's a good sequel, let's say.
Yeah, but I mean, the championship went down to the wire last year, and then of course we had 2021. I think we've been well served from championship disputes in the last few years, Lewis.
Well, especially like we went from Everts to Caroli. That was a long stretch of just nothingness as far as a championship fight went.
I'm very confused about who to tip. I mean, I've been saying Febvre all along, and I kind of want to stick to my guns, but it's looking a little bit more difficult.
I mean, we talked about it on the last episode, but I think it matters more every single week. Like, Coenen's run of form is incredible. I think that's now 10 podiums in a row. But
Romain has 13.
Fair, okay. That's now 10 top 2 finishes in a row for Coenen. I think that's the poignant difference there, right? Because Febvre, I was looking at this the other day. Febvre's had, in his run of 13, Febvre has had 2 third places. So you could argue, what does that really mean? But in the last 12 motos, he has missed the top 3 in 4 of them. There's a couple of just anomalies there of a 5th place, a 4th place. And in a game of inches like we've now got with this setup, I don't know, I think that is your reason to doubt Febvre. Whereas Coenen, if you look at his stat sheet, I don't know. He's young. That's all I've got. This is his first time. But equally, I would argue there's maybe more pressure on Febvre facing potentially his last shot than there is on Coenen facing his first.
Yeah, that's a great point. I do wonder how Coenen will handle that pressure, though, if they go into a final round decider in Australia. That would be a big thing. And maybe it will help the fact that, they will be so far away for the end of the championship, and it won't be, say, like in the Benelux or in one particular rider's backyard. In terms of just people being there, it'll be a skeletal attendance in the paddock. That will really play into Coenen's favour, I think. I mean, we talked about this on the last podcast. We don't want to go on about it too long, but I'm finding sort of the dynamic between the two pretty riveting. And you could see Coenen's almost extra energy in the second moto in Lommel. And also, just sort of one thing, maybe a bit of a tangent, but when you're standing trackside in Lommel, I almost feel bad for the dispute for the final step of the podium or for the top 5, which are also very notable results, in Grand Prix racing. But you don't notice, you don't catch up because your attention so focused on what's going on this duel for not only the lead in the race but the overall GP win. I mean, Calvin Vlaanderen took his second podium finish of the year.
Yep.
And it was I kind of forgot about it. I mean, until I saw the Yamaha contingent underneath the podium, I was like, oh right, okay, Vlaanderen took third. Because he had sort of Bonacorsi was up there at one point, Glenn Coldenhoff as well. Isaac Giftin, another fantastic performance, just really sending it as much as he can, like on that JK Yamaha. Actually brought flashbacks of Sean Simpson's win, from the same sort of setup in 2013 at Lierop. I can't believe that was the last time there was a Grand Prix there.
I thought the same because Simpson's JK Yamaha was white, wasn't it? I thought exactly the same.
Was it a light blue? No, that might have been his gear.
I think it was white, black, and light blue. Like it was a weird combination. Terrible. It looked terrible, to be clear. But
I mean, Gifting wrote great, and in the last show we were talking about the essential ingredient of starts for Lockett, and in the sand is a different kind of kettle of fish as well. You can afford to maybe fluff your start slightly, but then if you're a good enough rider and you can manage the sand, then you can make your way through. I think that's why we saw riders such as like Fredriksson, the Norwegian, had ridden for like WZ KTM for a couple of years. Credit to sort of our colleague Ralph, a German photographer. He said, look, watch out for him, because he had won the previous round of the Paddock German Masters Series at Tensfeld, which is in the sand. And so he came in with like good sand momentum. I think he was like 7th overall or something. Yeah. So it was a bit of a surprising result there. But just in case anyone was curious as to who this random Scandinavian was in the upper echelons of MXGP, then that's why.
This could be opening Pandora's box a little bit, but I agree with your initial point that Calvin's podium was overlooked, and I think that as a whole, Calvin is probably a very underrated, overlooked top athlete, because he is far better and more accomplished than Gifting and Fredriksson and Panzer. But he just, similar to maybe Fernandez, well, no, because Vlaanderen's better than Fernandez. Exactly to my point. He is just criminally underrated a little bit. Is it on him, Yamaha or MXGP to put more notoriety in his corner? And B, whatever party you choose, what could they do to help that?
That's a question and a half.
Yeah, I said Pandora's box.
Mate, I don't want to be... I don't want to sort of like remove credit, but I think it might just be... I think Calvin has the potential to win a Grand Prix, but it's not. He's not on the. He's like almost like a second tier rider, which is no bad thing. I think if you're a second tier behind the likes of, Tim Geiger, Jeffrey Hurlings, Romain Febvre, and Lucas Coenen, then that's still like a pretty elevated status in the international Grand Prix or motocross community. And that means that he is unlikely to be the leader of a factory team. I mean, he could be the leader of a very well-equipped satellite team, but he might not get the pristine factory contracts. I think that's just the way of the world, or the status quo of things. Am I being out of order?
No, I think you've just actually massively complimented him, because it's true. I think we look at Calvin in third place and we go, yeah, of course, Calvin's third place. He's more than good enough for that. I'm surprised he didn't do better. Whereas if it was Gifting in third place, we would be losing our minds.
Yeah.
It's a compliment, but it's also a reflection of the fact that he exists on this fine edge of top flight competition where he has to either tip over into the elite category or face this sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Anonymous future.
Yeah, just if you can kind of consider yourself as the best of the rest, it sounds terrible. Then, I don't think there's any dishonor in that. And I think he should be really happy that he defeated Koldenhoff, as we know, and as we talked about, he's having a great season, maybe one of the best of his career. I did an interview with him actually on Saturday evening, and he was revealing basically that they haven't changed the bike since November, and in tests, it's been very, very slight stuff. I mean, he's over the moon with the Fantic and what he's able to do with it and how he's able to perform. So I think that's also credit to Calvin that he's beating a rider that's in fantastic form. And as we know, riding the Yamaha is not an easy job this year, and it's I can't imagine behind the scenes what Calvin's really dealing with.
Before we move on from Calvin, with his Lommel podium, it was his 6th in the 450 class, and with 6 podiums in the MX1 MXGP division, he tied a couple of Lommel specialists, those being Sean Simpson, Max Anstey, Pauls Jonas, and Joel Smets. So there you go. That's quite
Joel Smets?
Well,
that's quite a scalp.
No, but this is talking MX1 MXGP, so 2004 on.
Right, okay.
Remember, we can find championship standings. Credit to Roger Harvey. He sent me a brilliant link where I've got championship standings now, but individual race results is over. Like, no one knows. It's just impossible.
Right. How's that even possible?
I know that in front do listen, and I know that the timing people and everything listen. If there's any way that you can give me just rough data that I could maybe pick apart myself and put it together, I'm open to that, so hit me up. And now we move into the MXGP Podcast Show's Rumour Report of the Week. So after last week's episode, literally I hung up on this podcast and got a phone call. And it was a very spicy rumour that I was like, ooh, wish I'd had that before the podcast. But I thought, well, let it simmer for a week and it'll probably die. Instead, it has gone the complete other direction. And it's accelerated to the point where I feel very confident to talk about it on this podcast. Ducati obviously lost out on Tim and Jeffrey, and that was a source of frustration because, of course, they wanted Tim or Jeffrey, and they're used to winning, and having a talent like that is important in their climb towards the top step of the podium. Now it would seem that Maxime Renaux is going to get out of his Yamaha contract a year early and lead Ducati into the 2026 MXGP season. Not confirmed, not finished, but by all accounts, it seems to be looking very good. And to support that, I spoke to a few people that said that Yamaha are just over him. Like, they would be very happy to just let him go. Like, it's not clearly, I don't think it's clear, it's not working. And then I also had reports from other people in the Lommel paddock that said Renaux was just walking around the paddock telling anyone who would listen that the bike is impossible to ride and it's terrible. And so ultimately, it seems Renaux and Yamaha is a fractured relationship that should end at some point soon, and it seems it's going to, as he heads potentially to Ducati. I'm not willing to stamp this like Tim to Yamaha, to be clear, but it's a rumour with enough substance that I think it's worth bringing to you, the listeners.
So then, would you say that Renaux is also feeling optimistic about Ducati after the weekend? Because the bike clearly has issues in the sand. And also, I would say the riders are, from what I kind of gleaned in Belgium, the riders are a little bit frustrated with the development process, whereby, you know, the engineers or the technicians are listening more to data and to simulations rather than, you know, the athletes themselves, because developing a bike to a level will take you that far. But if you suddenly want to aim for sort of headline making results, which they've grabbed a couple already this year, then you're going to have to cater to the whims of the rider. And, you know, if that's not happening, then that should also be an alarm bell, because if you're ambitious like Renaux and still in the sort of peak of your career, then you're not really getting into an environment that's going to be conducive to your, you know, to fulfilling the achievements you want to make.
Yeah, Jeremy told me that he's looking for a fairly major change to the bike, which I didn't even consider. And he said that that's his frustration, that he can't get it done. And then equally, I had another point on Ducati that I've completely forgotten. But if you're wondering...
Paolo Ciabatti told me the weekend that they're relying a lot on factory connection in the US to help as well with development schedules and work and bits and pieces and whatever. So I think there is new stuff coming. There are definitely some kind of solutions in the works, but then I just don't think it's coming fast enough for the current guys. I actually walked over to speak to Mattia Guadagnini, the second rider in the factory Ducati team, and he had this kind of like, it was post-race and he was just sitting in the awning while they were breaking it down around him. It was kind of a fitting scenario, actually. And he was just like glazed over and just looked like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. Because I wanted to talk to him about the airbag, because I think people watching the TV footage could see that it fired quite notably in Jago Hertz's crash. And I was just asking him about it, and he took it off a couple of weeks ago, but he'd been using it for most of the season, was very complimentary about it. I think his only issue was that, you know, he's looking to shake up his form and his riding, and has gone a bit sort of superstitious in terms of taking on anything new or any kind of extra possible pound of weight. So he kind of has stopped using the airbag. But yeah, we were talking about that, and you could just see that, you know, the travails, the recent travails of the Ducati crew, it's not an easy life over there at the moment. And of course, there's lots of rumours surrounding their team change and using Louis Vosters' team for 2026. That's still to be formalised, but it's very much going to happen by the sound of things.
Any inkling of whether Guadagnini is going to stay at Ducati or whether that door is closed completely? Or?
Well, I mean, it depends if Renaux goes there, then, and if Sewer wants to stay there, I think we're talking about the mess around Tim Geiger and Jeffrey Hurlings, but, this is like it's almost like that second tier effect again, different riders wanting to swap around different teams. But imagine for a moment that, Sewer stays and Renaux goes to Ducati, and they're the two riders. I mean, what did Yamaha do? I mean, did they keep someone like Calvin and run a two-man Yamaha team there?
Yeah, I think Tim and Calvin is arguably an elevation on what Yamaha have had in years gone by, no? Obviously mainly anchored by Tim, but I'd argue that's a formidable duo.
Well, also take into consideration that the guy who's third in the championship is currently under the remit of Louis Vosters, that being Glenn Coldenhoff. And if he finishes third and doesn't really have a factory deal for 2026, then that's pretty heavy. Ruben Fernandez, who he was an interesting watch at the weekend, came off a couple of times, and I don't think the prototype CRF is quite the finished article. I mean, of course, that's the definition of a prototype, I guess, but the Spaniard was struggling a little bit with that. I think it was just like intermittent power delivery or some sort of issue with electronics. I could be completely wrong, but that was what I heard sort of secondhand. And then Fernandez is in a situation where he wants factory backing, so he's hanging on for HRC to make up their mind and to see whether they have the resources to make 3 prototypes for 2026.
Yeah, hilariously, we randomly speculated last week off the cuff that maybe instead of a second MX2 rider now, HRC run a third 450 and put Fernandez there. And it seems like we stumbled right into the exact situation by pure luck. But I wonder, so I was discussing this with someone over the weekend, because I'm very annoying to everyone in the MXGP paddock. Because even when I'm not there, I just message everyone relentlessly and try to act like I am there. I wonder, allegedly, HRC are going to have 2 new riders next year, allegedly.
Well, Tom Vial's pretty much guaranteed, right?
Yeah,
there's been enough articles in the US as well that he's going.
Allegedly, there's going to be another new rider at HRC. Rumours say. The trees indicate.
Well, we said it 2 podcasts ago. Jeffrey Hurlings is aligned with HRC.
Allegedly. And I wonder if potentially, do you run Fernandez as a third rider on a prototype and then give allegedly Vial and allegedly Hurlings the option between the two? And then you say, Fernandez, sorry, you're the third guy. You don't have a choice. You need to be our poster child for the prototype. We need you for data, blah, blah, blah. But in order to make our alleged 2 newcomers happy, you can test either one and decide what you'd like and blah, blah, blah. I wonder if that could be a possibility as an option?
I think the main stumbling block is the apparently rider number 1 and the apparently rider number 2 would have to have... Well, HRC would need to have the material to run apparently rider number 3 with another 2 bikes and all the stock that it entails. I know that, KTM have had like this kind of side wing testing role program in the past, and people like Tano Leok and Brian Bogus and Sean Simpson at one point were all doing kind of development work for the factory as well as WP suspension. But I can't see HRC really having that kind of role. They have the might to do it, and of course, if you snare riders like Tom Vial allegedly and Jeffrey Hurlings allegedly, then you would think they would be able to conjure up another 2 bikes. But then again, if they're experimenting with this prototype and actually realize, a couple of the directions we want to take was say torsional flex on the chassis, or we need to redevelop some other part of the engine, then that's more resources, more cash, more time. And maybe it can't all be sorted out for the beginning of 2026. But I think Fernandez is waiting, and I wonder how long the Japanese will make him wait, because he could potentially be missing out opportunities at Yamaha or, say, Fantic, because that was another thing. Louis Vosters is allegedly taking Ducati on next year, so whether the Fantic bikes go. Jackie Martins, there was confirmation, I think, through GateDrop.com that he's not going to be running Hondas in 2026, so perhaps he could have the the Fantic bikes.
So,
but, if...
On that front, I think... So, yeah, JM Racing will no longer be Honda next year, which, to be honest, I can see it, because what value did that really bring Honda? In hindsight, or in true, honest form, they're just running ridiculously colourful bikes every week that look nothing like a Honda. So what's it really doing for Honda? I presumed, I think everyone put Fantic and JM Racing together just because it was obvious. But I had a message yesterday that said a rider was talking to Fantic at a weekend about next year, and Fantic told them it's not done, but it is looking incredibly likely that Maddie will run the team once more, which flies in the face of what you were told 6 weeks ago or so. But supposedly the rider has relayed that was what he was told in the meeting.
Also, I wonder, Ducati are in theory getting out of their agreement with Maddie. You'd understand why, because going to Vosters is like a bigger step up, not just for the infrastructure the team have, but also the backing and the whole scope, with full respect to sort of the Maddie setup. But Fantic are in a position now where they're taking podiums in the MXGP class. I just wonder whether, maybe they go back to Maddie because they know exactly what they're going to get. There's that reconnection, or there's just not much more choice around.
I think it's because Italians fuck with Italians. That's kind of just the way this sport operates, isn't it? You go on the Italian media websites and there's plethora of advertising from UFO and all of these Italian brands. Like, Italians just support Italians. That's kind of... Is that not... that is honestly my very blunt assessment of this industry. Is that not true? Like, you go to EICMA and there's just this weird little contingent of, like, Italians supporting Italians, and you kind of knocking on the door like, hello, Anglaise?
I don't know. No, I don't think there's much in that.
Okay. I don't know.
It's an interesting theory, Lewis,
Ducati went with Maddie.
Yes.
Over Wilvo. Let's not forget, Wilvo were actually in the running for that initially.
Yeah, but for the first year of like a high-profile racing project, I get that. Even just logistically, it's easier to deal with people who are just up the road speaking the same language rather than having to constantly ship shit to Belgium and Holland.
That's true.
So, I think that's more just like a common sense thing rather than a kind of a jingoistic thing.
Okay. But yeah, that's a Paddock roundup. Renault potentially to Ducati, which opens up a seat at Yamaha. JM Racing have definitely left, or definitely losing Honda. They actually put out a PR announcing that. And then Maddie is supposedly the favourite to run the Fantic team for next year. And I think that's the lot as far... did you get any inkling on what... Nistan is set for next year. It should be Husqvarna and it'll be the same riders. But did you get any inkling on what the in-house Red Bull KTM factory racing team will do or exist? Or
no, I was frustrated not to get much from Yamaha, but the thing is, Yamaha, I don't want to use the word bloated because I think that has negative connotations, but it's just so big. Hans Corvers, or the team principal, it's his home GP. He's got a lot of kind of corporate entertainment to do, but it just felt like it filled like two entire aisles in the paddock at Lommel, and you had a lot of the sort of top management there from Yamaha Europe, based near Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, and it just seemed quite impenetrable. There was like a lot of staff, and Yamaha just seems like this humongous effort. I wouldn't be surprised, if I'm being entirely speculative here, that there is maybe some sort of loss of direction, or maybe it does seem, I don't want to say it seems messy because it doesn't. It just seems it could be highly professional, but just seems so big. It seems like a real juggernaut to be trying to steer.
I don't think allegedly even needs to go in front of that statement. I think that Yamaha is just lost. I think honestly, you look at the MX2 program, I think they had 2 bike failures. That doesn't even need to be debated. That is a shadow of its former self. And at this point, I wonder if it's better to just not race in MX2 than do what they're doing currently.
Yeah, big time. It was a little bit depressing to see a rider like Hertz struggle a track which is very much in his backyard. Almost literally. And, Jago's a 3-time winner at the track, so he knows Lommel. And to see him just sort of, barely running sort of top 10 speed, it felt like was a bit of a hard watch. And I think that's why Calvin's podium, was a big kind of boost to the whole operation there. It was putting a Yamaha back in the top 3 was a decent sort of result for the things that have been happening. I mean, again, my sort of teenage son Jordy was sort of saying that Renault looked like a MotoGP rider because he kept coming around without his peak. So I mean, it just pretty much summed up the fact that he was burying his head in the sand quite a lot. If he does go to Ducati, then I hope he goes in there with his eyes and his ears open. And let's not forget as well, Lewis, that Yamaha are signing, theoretically, a very, very, very good rider for 2026. And maybe Geiger is the guy to pull things around. Well, you're losing track of your own rumours now.
Honestly, for a second, I was like, wait, what have I missed out on? I mean, if you want positive Yamaha news, last year they had 2 450 podiums and they've just had their 3rd of 2025, so they're on the way up.
Yes. Well, I completely ignored your question, but I think what I hear that KTM would be a 4-man effort. So if you take the Coenens, then that's 2 slots, and then who fills the other 2? Because you'll have, if Hurlings is out, then that frees up another one. So you've got Adamo. And then Marc-Antoine Rossi, does he stay, or what happens with Simon Längenfelder? The rumour in Belgium was that Simon actually, wants to stay very much in orange. And I don't know if there's any truth to that whatsoever. So that's another big allegedly.
Well, no, I think that you can put the pieces of the puzzle together and say that with the renewed interest from HRC to Fernandez and what you heard about Simon, it seems that his exploring within the paddock has bared no fruit, and he is just going to stay where he is in some form. But if it's going to be 4 riders, I think it's fairly certain that's Coenen, Adamo, and Simon. Do you put 4 riders in one team, or do you do 2 and 2? Because you could technically do 4.
I did another interview with Simon, which was kind of revealing as well, because he said that the Carly faction of Rebel KTM is a team at the events only. Because the Coenens are doing their own thing in France, and Simon has since moved back to Germany, where he's far more happier, and it's borne out in his results. So the Carly effort, instead of being this Cairoli-led, group that was operating largely around Malagrotta, and that extended into the time with Jorge Prado as well, now is kind of very much remote. So I don't know. I mean, the Coenens are doing great. I mean, Sasha as well got back on the podium. I think that was his 4th one in like 7 events, or I'm not sure if those numbers are correct. But, he's doing okay. And then, of course, Lucas is a career high for only sort of 3 years in World Championship racing. So, you'd imagine that sort of stays as it is for 2026. And then perhaps with Längenfelder being based in Germany, close to Belgium, then it makes sense just to make him and Adamo like the factory team. You have to feel something for Marc-Antoine Rossi, who's never really got the chance to show what he can do. But then, the injury he sustained pre-season pretty much took care of that. And then the KTM group obviously have Nestan and their superb facilities. They've got a fantastic tour from our friend Rasmus Jorgensen, the team manager there, on Monday morning. The workshop is clean enough to eat your dinner off the work surfaces. It was really impressive. They're based just down, that maybe half a kilometre from the circuit. Nestan, we running Kai de Wolf and Liam Everts, and Liam committed to MX2, and Kai, I guess, it depends what happens to him, Lewis, because if he wins the title and he put himself right back in the frame, because we should maybe talk a bit about MX2, then he has to move up. He has to be on a 450 next year.
Yeah, I think that even if he doesn't win, I think it's leaning towards he moves up anyway, and which would make it so that the KTM group has Lucas on a KTM 450, De Wolf on a Husqvarna 450, and then 4 250s, 1 Husqvarna, 3 KTMs. That seems...
Depends on Längenfelder. I mean, if he's on a 450 as well, then, you have 2 KTMs, 1 Husky.
I guess it is time, really. I mean, this is Längenfelder's 5th year? If he wins, I guess, why not move up?
That
would also make it very clean, because each team would have 1 and 1. As far as classes go. So that would be a tidy approach. It'll be 3 450s, 3 250s. I mean, in terms of balance, it works. Yes, indeed. Just wrapping up MXGP, Bonacorsi was 5th overall, and he is a great sand rider. He kind of flies in the face, or is a justification of the fact that we are far past the era of Italians and Frenchmen and Spaniards not being able to ride sand. It's a level playing field now. And Bonacorsi, even going back to his 125 days, has been superb at Lommel.
I was
Oh,
writing in my story, Lewis, which you were very nice to give me a compliment on the Substack, that Jonathan Barragan, a Spaniard, was the first person to win a Grand Prix at Lommel this century. So that was, something of an upset. But then, of course, Cairoli, a sort of tiny Sicilian, was the next sort of dominant run.
Barragan's career is bizarre, and I think we could dive into that for a long time as well. I might add that to my list. We haven't even mentioned. Well done, Lewis. I want everyone to give me credit for this. 54 minutes in, haven't even mentioned Jeffrey Hurlings.
We did, really.
Well, we talked about his
We mentioned him a bit.
allegedness.
Oh, his legedness, yeah.
He was back. One time on the bike in 5 weeks. The second moto lap time was something to behold.
I'm going to give you 45 seconds to summarize this.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
Go.
One time on the week in 5 weeks. One time on the bike in 5 weeks. Second moto, he had the fastest lap of the race, a 1:59. The second fastest was a Febvre with a 2:03. So superb. We saw the speed. And he crashed a lot, which is surprising because I've always said, despite Jeffrey's many, many injuries, he's not a crasher. There are many riders who crash more. And I would argue that his first second moto crash in the waves in the second moto was maybe the biggest Jeffrey crash I've ever seen. And he got up miraculously. So he'll be back on the podium in Sweden. This was just a exercise in turning up, I think.
I don't like you saying he had the fastest lap. He had the whole shot, and it was when the track was not at its roughest state.
Yeah, but...
Because the second lap dipped into the 2:03s, just like, Coenen and Febvre. So it was not like... It was just an anomaly, that one.
No, but Febvre was second, so Febvre could have gone with him.
Yeah,
and Coenen was
had
fourth, so Coenen could have gone with them as well. Like they could have all done. They all had equal opportunity to go that fast at the beginning of the race.
Look, it was really impressive, I think, what Hurlings did. I mean, he was telling quite a few people that he just had no strength, no power. He's been, pretty much a whole month off the motorcycle. He only rode on Thursday, I think, in Gierda. I don't know if I said that correctly, a Dutch track, and made the decision to race. So, like you say, I think he was quietly, he was kind of laughing at himself afterwards, saying, like you pointed out, Lewis, he had 4 crashes over the course of the 2 motos on Sunday and didn't break anything, which is kind of unusual for him, as he pointed out himself. But, what was it? He was 8th overall, I think. He went 8 for 8. But, in Lommel, we've seen him produce utter magic. And I still think this was a slice of magic, considering sort of the latest setback that he's faced. I don't think I would put him on the podium just yet in Sweden because, again, like Lockett, that's going to be a very start-dependent track. He did get the whole shot in the second moto.
He's a whole shot man now.
Yes. So,
it took him
question mark
15 years on a KTM, but he's finally figured out how to start. Would be a terrible time to allegedly move on. I was looking, if you want me to cast a critical eye on Jeffrey, it's not even critical, but when you look at it, you forget that his 2 wins were his only podiums. He didn't have a second or third before those. So on the season as a whole, despite the races missed, he's had 2 podiums, which means that no matter what happens over the final 5 rounds, this is likely to be his least accomplished season by some way.
Yeah, but I think it's the utter Jeffrey Hurling season. He has a great year where he completes the season, has an injury that forces him off the bike all winter, comes into the year, fighting to catch up with everybody else, starts winning again and has another injury. The fact that his 2 podium finishes are 2 wins just sort of sums everything up. I mean, it's like feast or famine. And, if he is moving to a Japanese bike, then, this manufacturer and this team have signed the fastest KTM rider in the world. But whether they've signed the fastest motocross rider in the world generally is something that we'll have to wait and see. But there was talk of Jeffrey and Honda in the paddock in Lommel. And
I hope everyone said allegedly before they talked about it.
It was a whisper. Okay. It was like Rome in Gladiator, something that the people just dreamed about. I mean, it's going to be a sensational sight. I mean, seeing Hurlings for the first time on a Honda.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. It's going to be a big thing. And I think Honda are well aware that they're going to have to manage the whole PR and marketing side of it.
Yep, enter Lewis, allegedly. I'd like to invite you, Adam. I've already committed to this in my mind So the action may not follow, but I'd like you to commit to it as well. No matter
Breakable levers?
No, that's next.
Oh.
That's actually coming. I'm going to build on that. Don't worry. No matter what the respective SMX and MotoGP calendars are next year, no matter where the MXGP calendar lands, I think that we have to be at round 1. Because Jeffrey allegedly on a different bike, Tim on a Yamaha, Renaux potentially on a Ducati. I think the storytelling potential in MXGP round 1 is going to blow the roof off of everything. And I think
yes and no.
It's a must attend.
Yes and no. Because the round 1 is just going to be like Anaheim, and you just get really freaky, weird shit. I'd rather wait until maybe the first round in Europe, where everyone's in their kind of setups, their aquariums, whatever else.
I think it'd be harder to do interviews there though, because there's going to be sponsors and signings and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but what are the riders going to say anyway at the first round before they've even raced?
Hello, nice to see you.
Yeah. I know we would have done plenty of pre-season work by then, but and I agree with the sentiment, Lewis, and the conviction. But yeah, Cordoba might be a bit of a stretch. And I also think for you, doing one MXGP a month is unrealistic as well, because you're going to be learning to sleep on transatlantic flights.
Adam, I'm failing as a journalist and in my career, and young Lewis would be extremely disappointed in himself. So old Lewis
I think you're doing pretty good.
No, old Lewis is taking action to rectify all of this. Maybe going to all of the WSX rounds as well now. If you've got a race, Lewis is going to go there because...
you're just unbreakable like those levers.
Yes, well, I said that round 1 of MXGP 2026 is going to be a spectacle. I don't know if anything can rival the spectacle of snapping levers, ? That's weak and outdated. Polysport's APT unbreakable levers bend on impact, bend back to their original shape, and let you keep riding. With a stainless steel core built for war, they are rock solid strong and designed to match the OEM levers shape and specs. The Polysport's APT unbreakable levers stand up to every single challenge. Thank you to Polysport and, of course, Prox Racing Parts for their support of this podcast. And when I say 1 a month, I kind of mean on average. So, like,
right,
you know, like maybe it'll be in a 6-week span, or but I've got a rough idea in my head of
if you can do more than one, then that's something. And also, stainless steel core prepared for war. I think your next read for the next podcast for our Swedish GP wrap up, you should do everything in rhyme. Okay. Go like principal characters of a Shakespearean play. Abandon prose and just go for some sort of what's it called?
Unbreakable levers.
Yeah, well, yes, that's the rhyme. Some couplets.
Okay, I'll do that. Young Lewis wanted to be a poet as well, and he's disappointed. So this is a perfect opportunity to fix that as well. MX2 quickly. Well, we already talked about Kai, so well done to Kai.
Yeah. Well done to Husqvarna.
Championship-wise, I'm reserving all judgment until Sweden, because if Simon puts points on Kai in Sweden, we just have a Finland Lockett situation where all of the hard work is undone. If Kai can gain even 5 points on Simon in Sweden and then go into Arnhem and take more away, we're on. Championship fight on. If Kai loses points in Sweden, or even ties, I think we're championship off. That's kind of where I'm at. So I'm in a very much state of wait and see for what Sweden brings.
Well, there's 300 points left, isn't there, prior to Sweden? So that's quite a lot. And my maths was way off on the last podcast, so I apologise for that. And also a small admonishment for you for not correcting me, because I was counting MotoGP sprint points, which are 12, rather than MXGP's 10. So it's 60 points a race.
Adam, I'm a failure. I'm no position to correct you.
I know. You should have picked me up on that.
Well, don't tell young Lewis.
So, make a poem. There's plenty of points to go, Lewis. I think we can't really enter into those dynamics until we get to maybe Turkey, which isn't that far away.
So it's 38 points now. You think if the state of play remains the same after Sweden and we enter Arnhem, 4 rounds to go with 38 points, you think that's doable?
Yes, 100%.
I think 38 in 4 is too much.
No, I completely disagree. How many did he take back this weekend just in the sand alone? I think
Yeah, okay.
Längenfelder is going to be under pressure in Arnhem.
Arnhem, yeah, but Turkey, or Turkiya, or whatever they call it now, I don't know. Turkey will favour Simon. China is maybe a wash, and then Australia, I guess, whoever will crack. But don't get me wrong, if it's 38 with 4 to go, I could see Kai getting you down to 20, but not enough, you know.
Oh, I think it's game on, and also props to the in front motor racing press officer, Anthony Andrell, who I said to him, he's doing sort of the post race press conferences, and he said to Kai, one of his questions was, when you come to the sand race, is it pretty much accepted that this is your opportunity to close points? It's almost a given that you have to win, which I thought was a good question because De Wolf only has pressure from team expectations. As we mentioned, Nestan is based just down the road. He's got his friends, family, everybody else who will just make the short trip across the border. There's all that almost home GP vibe, which is going to be maybe even a little bit more intense in Arnhem. But then also the fact that he is the sand rider that he is. I mean, he can't afford to drop the ball. I think Andrea Damo's made huge steps in the sand, but he's not at Kai's level, and Kai's shown that, when they raced in Sardinia. Längenfelder, I think you can file alongside Adamo, and those two were 4-5 at the weekend, didn't make it. Camden McClellan, who is, he admitted he's sick of being given the Sandman tag, because this was his second podium, and he, in the soft stuff. He's somebody else that, you kind of have to file in that bracket, which, great, because it's another name up there, sort of mixing up in the points division. And if you say that Kai goes 1-1-1 again in Arnhem, and you have people like McClellan, also Sasha Coenen, who's, too far away from the championship fight, even though he's closing in on the top 3, then, I think it's easily doable.
Okay. You've convinced me, but I would favour... It may be doable, but I would favour Simon if Sweden doesn't go in Kai's favour. Let's say that.
Yes.
McClellan, 2 points on McClellan. Well, 3 points on McClellan. 1, great job, amazing, brilliant. 2, we had a South African on the podium in both classes, which must be the first time ever on the same weekend, I would argue. Rattray and Langston, maybe, but that would have been pre-MX1 and MX2.
No, Langston had left GPs by 01.
Okay. Well, then, yeah, that's the only guess I have.
I want to, because Albertine only did the one-off in Sun City, but he was nowhere near the podium. Good shout, Lewis.
But
I'm
then,
struggling to think of another.
Of course, you could abolish this stat because Calvin races with the Dutch flag and under a Dutch nationality. So technically, does the stat count? I'd say no, because the record books don't show it.
Could we also say, could we say 2 South African riders on the same podium at the same time? Because Gareth Swanepoel might have been up there with Rattray.
Oh, yeah, that would have happened. I think that happened to Lierop in 07, I want to say.
Okay.
But speaking of the Calvin Dutch flag, I wonder if I may be misremembering parts of this story. This was actually one of my first big breaks in the moto journalism world. When the South African Federation basically told in front that they don't want Calvin to race under the South African flag and use the anthem because they don't have their permission. Wonder if McClellan gets the same treatment or not. Or if they've learnt from their mistakes.
Yeah, I must have learned this quite some time ago.
Well,
right?
it was 2018. But also McClellan's mum is the team manager for Team South Africa, so I'd imagine that gives you some pull.
Political weight.
Yes. But yeah, that's also another story to revisit. That whole deal was bizarre.
McClellan needs to be making more of these results, doesn't he? He's too good of a rider. And also it's really cool to see that the Triumph is, the next best bike after an Austrian one. It's a bit of a slap in the face to the Japanese brands as well, as we've mentioned before. But McClellan needs to be getting more podium results because he's good enough.
Yes, without doubt. This is a controversial statement. If you just look at the MX2 overall results, it feels as though there's a handful of elite names nestled in amongst a lot of names that you can't really see going far in the sport long term. Wonder if that's a reflection of the state of
Such
play.
as?
What, you want me to list names that aren't? What, can I list the
Well, no,
elite names?
you're clearly not rating some riders.
Well, no, like,
I know it's not.
I mean, you look at the top 6, and then from 7 down, it's kind of just a lot of, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, Guillaume Ferrez had a tough day, as did Valerio Lata. I'm just looking at the ranking as well. But you have got, I mean, Thibaut Benestan, I probably expected a bit more from him at Lommel. But then you have Kaz Volk, Railslus. Are we saying that name right?
It's Rejushish.
I don't think of that. Somebody like, forgive my ignorance, but Scott Smulders, who's riding a Triumph as well.
Who the hell is Liam Owens from Australia?
Yeah, I know. That's bizarre.
I've never heard that name in my life, and I had no idea there was an Australian in MX2. But congrats to him for points. And congrats to Ollie Colmer, who was, I believe, Britain's first MX2 point scorer of the season. Which is a far cry from 10 years ago, in fact. 10 years ago, Britain won both classes, as I was reminded of reading ontrackoffroad.substack.com.
Yes, and don't forget that the one and only Ben Watson, Britain's last GP winner at Lommel. No, Arco de Trento. The first one was at Lommel, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Proving just how versatile and brilliant he is. He won in the sand of Lommel and then the slick, old school hard pack of Arco de Trento just 2 weeks later. Proving.
You're getting all poetic now.
Oh, just well-rounded. If you want to talk about well-rounded, I'd argue that's it. Because so many times you see these riders win at Lommel and not back it up elsewhere. Not Ben.
I felt sorry for Ben because he was running top 8, I think, second moto, but then spun out on the exit of the first turn that for some reason was really slick. I don't know, maybe it was the way that they flattened it for the start of the races, because Maxime Renaux actually even crashed on the sighting lap going through that corner, which was kind of hard to believe.
Well, symbolic of his season, I'd say.
Yes, another peak gone. So Alpine Stars having to fork out quite a lot for peaks. But yes, a shame for Ben.
And it's a shame, really, because it seems that the Renault and Yamaha relationship has completely fallen apart. And obviously Ben was the sacrificial lamb for that relationship. And it was all in vain.
He could go back.
I think justice says that he should.
Yes.
Yamaha.
Yes.
Yamaha.
Start the campaign.
Look, let's be honest, Yamaha.
It's karma, Lewis. It's karma. If they took him back, then things would suddenly switch back to how they were.
From a PR perspective, things aren't going great for Yamaha at the moment. There's bikes blowing up. There's riders complaining. I don't know what happened to Gertz, but it sure did look like an engine failure. What better way to get the media and some positive PR than bring back Ben Watson? I'll do a one-man podcast for an hour talking about what a great decision it is. Now,
it'll be another broken contract, though, Lewis. Should we kind of be advocating for these things?
You know what? Sometimes the law just needs to be looked at as rough guidelines. Sometimes you need to colour outside of the edges.
It has to be bent rather than broken.
And, right. If you need a fall guy, I'll be the fall guy. You can say that it was all me. But yeah, let's right the wrongs, and I've often said on this podcast, Yamaha needs to turn back the clock and go back to their 2021 form. What better way than to bring back the rider lineup?
Launch the campaign.
Let's bring back Sewer as well.
Why not David Philipparts?
Oh, why not? What's Everts doing nowadays? Also, we'll save that for another time.
Credit to Lottie Van Drunen, for entering the MX2 class. Didn't get any points, but I also, can I say this? I guess I'm of a certain age, so I probably can, but just the livery and the graphics and everything on her bike, she stood out a mile. I mean, the design and the aesthetics of it, and it's nothing to do with the fact that she's a female. It's just a well-designed aesthetic.
Is it a little bit on the nose for the girl to be riding the pink bike?
No, it was great.
Is it not a little bit on nose? Like
I told you that it was difficult to follow the fight for third place in MXGP because everything gets kind of spaced out and separated a lot more. But I could see Lottie quite well and what she was doing and how she was riding, purely because of the visual side of it. So that was kind of like it was like the Pit Byer effect. Pit Byer always used to have that sort of fluorescent paint job on the front of his peak. And you could say it's just like a graphic detail, but you could always see where he was on the track because there was this bright yellow right at the top of the helmet peak, and it was just a cool little trick.
Okay, I'm convinced we're going to get Ben a bright yellow helmet peak as well. Yamaha, you're going to be seen from everywhere. I'm sold on that as well. Anything else? We did this in Germany, and I really enjoyed this segment. Best conversation you had at Lommel?
Oh,
not necessarily an interview, off record, whatever. Best conversation. One that really stands out.
It would have to be a tie between speaking with our good friend Roger Harvey and Rasmus Jorgensen.
Oh,
so
what a duo. Oh, and worst conversation he had in the paddock.
Worst conversation. Jeremy Sewer, because I've never seen him more fed up. So, and it was also my fault because I went there 15 minutes before warm-up, and I tried to sort of lighten the mood by saying that his orange Fox gear looked absolutely terrible, with the combination with the Ducati, which actually, isn't a great-looking bike in itself, just because of the weird distribution around Aruba and the red and the black. But the attempt to be somewhat light or extend some brevity to the situation didn't work, Lewis. So maybe that'll be that's to answer your question.
I messaged Jeremy last week and said, "Let me know when it's going so bad that you need me to come back." So I'll let you know when that happens. When my background...
have you bought a ticket?
Not yet. Maybe it's time.
Can I also just say, on contrast to my point about Ducati, the best looking bike, and not just because he was riding it so awesome, and also because we have a relationship with these people, but the Husqvarna, what's it called? Is it an FC 250F?
Or it's just FC 250. I think there's no F.
Right. Okay. Wow. I mean, just
the
the way
F
that
is
it's built. Right. Okay. This is the way that it's built. The architecture is really clean. Very minimal. For me, it's definitely sort of the best looking MX2 bike, maybe even in the whole GP paddock.
Yeah, and I think Nissan have always been very conscious of their overall look. Fox gear, bell helmet, it all looks very American. So it stands out from a mile away, I'd argue, even more so than the pink bike. Final game segment in the Lommel experience game. Not its official title. Person you didn't talk to that you really wish you had.
Hans Corvers, to find out more about Yamaha. I sort of said hello to him, but he was always talking to someone else, and it didn't feel like the right moment to butt in. I didn't really get a chance to talk to Tony Cairoli much. Saw him around the track and said hello.
Did you talk to Strybos this time?
No, I just greeted him. I didn't get a chance. He was always wearing headphones because he's always on track as well. A lot of ex-riders in the paddock these days. Mark Deruva, Sean Simpson was there. Goodness. Yeah, I didn't really get a chance to talk with Pitt Beyer either.
That was honestly my main motivation for going, was to talk to Pitt. I have a lot of questions for Pitt. But
and he hasn't been to many. I think he went to Tuchenthal as well, and Lommel.
Oh,
and of course,
it's all you.
Well, of course, we're running out of races as well because with MXGP vanishing off to Turkey, China, and Australia, and then to the US for the nations, then there's not really that many more occasions to sort of get the top bosses on the ground. But yeah, that was it, Lewis, to answer your question. I have one final point with regards to the GP of Belgium. I bumped into Christian Burnham. So fans of a certain age will remember him as a former 500cc rider. I spoke with Christian at the Nations at Ernée. He was telling me that, after riding, he had some personal problems and some stuff he had to sort out. But he kind of reinvented himself. He sort of discovered a bit of a direction with conceptual art. And it was cool to bump into him in Lommel, where he explained that he had made the trophies for the Grand Prix. And you probably saw them on the podium, these kind of like strange artwork, framed. And it doesn't look, from a distance, it doesn't really carry much impact. But seen up close was really impressive because it's actually like a sketch of a bike with, I think it's Born to Ride or something, the slogan, with the 1, 2, and 3, the numbers up there for the positions. But it's actually made out of the sand from the track. So it's quite a cool sort of design and something that's very special or linked to the Lommel Grand Prix. So I thought that was a nice little touch by the organisers.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to and actually completely forgot. He actually handed out the trophies as well, which was an even nicer touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the start of your career collided with the end of his, right?
Yeah. He was still racing in '01 when I was first in the paddock. So,
also, I need to tell you about Prox. So I mentioned last week how our good friend Anton from Prox is doing a race this weekend. And I've actually got the name of it now.
How do you get on?
It's this coming weekend.
He's still to do it? Oh, it's coming.
I think the first day is today. It's the FIM Enduro Vintage Trophy.
Okay.
It's Enduro on vintage bikes, given the clue is the Enduro and vintage in the name. It's in Poland. Pikausko. The track Pikausko. And he's riding a bike that's very old. I would not want to ride Enduro on it. But what I can guarantee is that Prox almost certainly have parts for it, believe it or not. Because if you head to pro-x.com, select your ride with year, make, and model, there's a wide array of aftermarket parts for your steed. For instance, I've just put in, and this is a real risky game, I've just put in a 1975 Yamaha 125, and there's parts. Absolutely unbelievable. Who would have thought? So actually, it's that time of year with the Foxhill VMXDN and the Farley Castle VMXDN coming up. A lot of people building bikes, breaking parts on their old bikes. Head to pro-x.com. And of course, if you're living in the modern day, you can do that as well because pro-x.com caters to everyone. If your clutch is slipping, a new pair of goggles will not help. And Polysport as well.
I'm a bit confused because there's been some name changes going on. I was writing a text about the ISDE yesterday, and it's not called the International 6-Day Enduro anymore. It's called the FIM Enduro something. And I was thinking, okay, so when did that sort of happen? Because, the ISDE, I think it's in its 99th edition this year. I mean, it's almost like a full century of racing. And it's been changed to a bit of a sort of modern moniker, which I thought was a bit of a shame.
I'm just... The FIM 6 days?
Yes.
Ugh. What's that mean?
It's like 6 days, spelt with a 6. 6 days, yeah. FIM Enduro...
Well, the website... I'm on the website. It just says 6 days, Italia 2025. I mean...
Okay.
But that doesn't mean anything. What is that? Is that motocross? Is that enduro? Is that... Rallies?
That's enduro. It's a famous ISDE.
No, but I mean, you can't tell
event.
By the name. The name doesn't.
Right, yes.
The name doesn't give you any clue. Okay.
Well, I think the brand is now it's 6 days, spelled with the number 6.
Okay, now so back on my soapbox again. I just got off after the Ben thing. The FIM. I swear to God, if you try and change the name of the nations, I will hunt you all down, and there will be unspeakable things happening. And you know what?
I'm tired of people saying Des Nations. It's not the fucking Des Nations.
What did I just?
It's just the same as. It's just the same as Jet Lawrence is not racing in the 500cc class.
Did I just call it the Des Nations?
No.
Oh. I think I
you
sometimes...
said the Nations.
Okay, good. Jeez, I thought that was an attack on me. I was very concerned for a second. Yeah, don't change that as well. I feel like if they're changing the ISDE, that has to be next. But what are they going to call it? The FIM 2 days?
No, I actually think it's the FIM Enduro of Nations. That's it. I think that's the title. I could have probably just opened the text I'd written to check, but yeah. So it's following the Nations tag because they have a Trial of Nations and they have, I think, a Speedway of Nations.
Well, someone
should tell
Someone should tell their website because their website has no word of Enduro of Nations. It just says 6 days everywhere.
Isn't that the event website?
I'm on fim-isde.com.
Just to finish, speaking of matters of FIM, I went to a very impressive presentation by MIPS, the helmet technology. They back, they have an ambassador link up with Tim Geiger in MXGP. They have Jorge Prado in Supercross and Joan Mir, HRC racer in MotoGP. They gave just a comprehensive description of the work they're doing in motocross and with their helmet technology. And they also, for the first time, in a brand new trailer, actually, went to visit in the paddock in Lommel. It was like a really kind of impressive layout of how their technology works. Lots of things to sort of look at and touch and to really learn about how MIPS technology inside helmets like Alpine Stars, Fox, Bell, I don't think so. But, how this sort of engineering is helping save people. So it was that was quite a cool thing organised by both MIPS and In Front Motor Racing.
Yeah, my final thought, and you can make this as quick as you want. From what I saw on social media and photos and whatnot, this seemed like the most extravagant MXGP paddock ever, as far as the Fox booth, the Fly booth, the MIPS booth, as you just said, and then the amount of goldfish bowls. It felt, again, I mentioned the nations vibe on track. From what I saw in the pits, it seemed like everyone put a nations level effort into their activation and their presence.
Yeah, Fox launched their 2026 gear on Saturday. Didn't get time to go and see it. Fly had a big stand there, as did Alpine Stars. And the VIP setup for Lommel, which is actually run by the circuit, not by Infront, was another level. I mean, it really was MotoGP VIP Village sort of standard. I couldn't believe it. I think I sent you a photo, but you couldn't, just peering inside. I mean, it was real kind of high class stuff. And I thought, okay, everything's moving upwards in terms of sort of presentation or treatment or whatever else. And if you're going to charge people premium buck to watch motocross, then they had a great location next to sort of the big triple jump and also just the facilities as well to enjoy the sport.
Yes, I'm impressed. Well done, Infront. Well done, all involved. I'm really impressed with what's going on in MXGP. Let's keep it up.
One final news point, I've probably said that about 3 times. One final news point is that the teams had a meeting with Infront, tends to happen around Lommel time. There was discussions for the future of the championship as well as the calendar for 2026. Apparently the calendar is not out yet when provisional calendars have been released from sort of other top flight sports, purely because of the amount of TBAs still on the list.
Never change.
So I think, I think Infront Motor Racing are looking to solidify a few of those venues and fixtures before they can release anything, which I think is also a pretty good move, because it wasn't too long ago that they were throwing calendars out and they were changing 3 to 4 times. Admittedly, in the wake of the pandemic, where it wasn't easy at all to organise public sporting events, so a degree of sympathy there. Also, the teams were expressing some concern about the rider numbers, associated with the costs of going to China, Turkey, and Australia. So I don't know. Didn't really hear of any kind of solutions or remedies to ensure a healthy turnout, but I think there is concern amongst the teams that it won't be as good a Grand Prix as it could be, purely because of the expenses and the way or the position of the race on the calendar. But I think Indonesia is rumoured to be coming back on the calendar for next year, as well as a trip to Brazil, which would be cool. MXGP hasn't been to Brazil in 10 years.
Well, that'd be easy for me. If that's round 1 as well, that'd be lovely.
Yeah. The last one was in Trinidad, so that was next to Guania, where MotoGP are racing. MotoGP haven't been to Brazil for even longer. I mean, you could be looking at a South American doubleheader, because if Cordoba happens again, it makes sense to go straight to Brazil or vice versa.
Okay, first of all, I would be very surprised if Brazil happens, because the long-rumoured Brazilian Grand Prix still hasn't come to fruition. I feel like that rumour surfaces around this time every year. But if it does, and Indonesia is indeed back, I really hope that Infront don't have the balls to try and release a calendar with Argentina, Brazil, Indonesia, Australia, Turkey, and China, because that's not going to go down well. So I really hope that someone in Infront is like, that would be cool. Probably not the greatest idea, though.
Well, you'd have to put Australia and Indonesia together as a double header. You'd have to have South America together as double header. That would be 4. I mean, if you're having 6 flyaways, then that would be 4. And China, I don't know how you fit that in.
Could you do China, Indonesia, Australia?
A triple header? I mean, that's
what we're doing with Turkey, China and Australia.
Yes. I mean, like Nestan are driving, for example, to Turkey. They're not using the freight for that. But I mean, that's a triple headers are pretty heavy going, Lewis. Yeah, but as we've just said, the Lommel paddock was full of expensive looking kind of displays and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's that's a little bit where the sport is at the moment.
Okay, my final point. What do you know? So the OATs, obviously you pay and you're in the Infront exclusive club, whatever you want to call it. I've heard rumours that teams who have kind of entertained not going to Australia and China are going because the fines from in front for not going are too large. But I don't
Well,
think
there's this rumored blacklist as well that you don't want to be on, because then you're not featured on TV, or maybe you get a shitty parking spot in
I've
the
never
paddock.
heard that. Really?
Oh yeah, I mean, that this is a heavy allegedly, but then,
yes, allegedly, of course.
but if you're in control of the paddock and you have a rogue team that is sort of vouching, or what's the word, welching on their commitments, then I guess you have to expect some comeback. I don't know. Maybe we're just in the realms of fantasy now.
I feel as though I've not actually heard about these magical fines being actually actioned before. And I don't know how much they would be. I'm really curious now, and I wondered if you had heard something in years past. But I'm also wondering if our good friend Dan, who is doing a great job at the moment, Lommel Paddock was amazing apparently, and the racing was brilliant. I wonder if our good friend Dan would offer some terms of these deals with the OAT teams. Also, so I came up with an idea. There's a team that recently stopped. There's two teams that recently stopped, and I was thinking of doing an anonymous story with terms. Like their identity will be sealed forever.
Okay, what you mean? Identity hidden to protect?
Yeah, I'll just do a story.
sources.
I'll just do a
Okay.
story, and the quote will say "said previous team owner."
Okay, yeah, try it. See if you can do it.
Because I don't know what these fines would be. Hope we're not
Yeah,
under
I
the
think
fun
the
for
fine-
fines from in front for this podcast.
No, I don't think. Is there a fines category in an OAT contract? Do
don't
teams even
know.
sign a contract? I mean, I know they do in MotoGP, because that's coming up for renewal. And obviously there's the Concord agreement in Formula One, but I don't think teams are asked to sign contracts in MXGP.
Yeah, this is where I'm
I mean,
curious. I've never heard it before.
Yeah.
But put a pin in that for another day.
Yes. More
as al-
investigation needed.
As normal, this podcast has stretched far and wide from the Grand Prix of Flanders. Apologies if we didn't touch on your favourite rider or your favourite point of discussion, but we did touch on a variety of wild randomness. A lot of it, allegedly. Thank you once again to Polisport and Prox Racing Parts for their support of this podcast and all that we do. We hope to keep growing it. We hope to maybe do some more. Obviously, the off-season's coming up, so that will give us creative license to get a little bit wild. And yeah, a lot coming up. So thank you to you people for listening as well. Thank you for your support. We will be back in 2 weeks to discuss the Grand Prix of Sweden at Uddevalla. So we will see you then.